today we are at Gabis Arboretum in Valparaiso, Indiana, and we are exploring. When I do my YouTube stuff, I'm used to working with a script, and this is totally off script. Ooh, ferns. Lots and lots of ferns. So these are actually for those that don't know, these are modified fern leaves, and inside of here are the spores that are going to produce new ferns next year. And I don't know if these actually are this year's. I'm assuming it's this year's. But if you go in and you crush these, the little brown stuff on the is the spores that'll produce babies. Baby ferns. So this is staghorn sumac. The leaves are gone because this is a deciduous tree, but you can actually take that seed head, which are individual little fruits, and you can actually make a lemonade. But I always like to say, don't eat it if you aren't sure of identification. And that's the only edible part are those fruits. So, I'm in a new spot, which ideal, I'm pretty good with identification, but there's still some plants, if they're not natives or I've not seen it before, I get a little bit rusty. But this is good. I like this. I'm seeing stuff that I like. Coming in, there were a few spots that were a little where they're working on removing burning bush from the landscape here, which is really cool, by the way. If you don't know what burning bush is, it's a invasive that spreads pretty rapidly, and so the garden here is working on removing it, which is, like I said, really cool. Hey guys, which way are we gonna go? Owl or heron? I think we'll go owl. I actually saw something. So, normally I would never get this close, but I saw something, and I don't see the leaves, but I'm not even going to use the walking stick on this one because I don't want to get it on anything. But you see this vine, the hairy one that's right in front of me? That is quite possibly poison ivy. So we don't want to touch it, but poison ivy is famous for having that hairy vine. So, yeah, and even though it doesn't have leaves, you can still get it. So, leave it be. That is one of those things that if you're going to be outdoors, that you want to know. Poison ivy is super important. So this is wild blackberry. The cool thing about blackberry is that there are no poisonous lookalikes. So it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or Nova Scotia. Well, Nova Scotia's in Canada. But Europe or North America, it's edible. So if you're ever in a survival situation and you need water, if you know you have a grapevine, which this looks like grape, it'll kill the grape. So you're going to kill the plants. But if you have a knife, you can cut that and you can get drinkable water for what it's worth. So the mushrooms and the moss and the lichens that are growing on this fallen tree is a great sign that nature is doing its thing. The fungi is breaking down the tree. The fungus that's growing on this tree is helping to break it down into soil, into something usable. But just as a reminder, these are toxic, and you should treat all mushrooms and fungi as if they were toxic unless you know for sure what you're dealing with, because mushrooms are no joke. I didn't even see you. Just a little slug, a little mollusk. I got really excited there. Okay, I think. So this is a botanical garden, and the plants are here for you to come in and observe. If you have a botanical garden or a zoo in your area, go to them. Pay the money, go get yourself out in nature or to the zoo so that your money can go for conservation. Really important. Something that's really, really important in a landscape is dead trees. Dead trees are so important. They provide nesting places for a multitude of animals and places for animals to just roost and look for food. So, super important. We talked about the mushrooms earlier, or not mushrooms, but the fungi. Probably a cottonwood by the looks of the bark, maybe not. You can see up on the upper branch of this tree that's to my right, there's a lot of fungi, and fungi is such an vital organism, and I talked a little bit about it before, but it really does. Without it, there would be nothing would be gone. It would still be here, which is a really scary thought. So I also really believe that as important as it is to know the edible plants in the area, you also need to know the poisonous plants. Very, very important. And this is a poisonous plant. This is an iris. I don't know the species, but doesn't matter because they're all poisonous. Most people aren't going to eat this, but the roots and the leaves and the flowers contain a chemical that's really bad for the liver. So don't make that mistake. Cool. So the nest that we're looking at is probably a squirrel's nest, or it could be crow or hawk, but squirrels and hawks will use the same nest. I can't tell from here, and my binoculars are acting up on me. They, looking at it, I would say probably a hawk's nest. Could be owl, could also be crow, maybe. But bird's nests are interesting because they will use whatever material is around to build their nest. Unfortunately, that sometimes means plastic can get mixed in there, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So, but nests are a good sign. So this is another plant. This is multiflora rose, which unfortunately is an invasive. It was brought in as rootstock for another rose, and it escaped the rootstock. There's at least a male, and well, I know I saw a male, possibly a female, off over in here. But I'm not seeing it. But cardinals will stay around year round. There. He's flying across. So, cardinals are the state bird of Indiana, and plus they're just a really great bird to have in the ecosystem. Well, I hear one. Ooh! So this is sort of cool. Now this is not milkweed, but it can be very confusing if you don't know, because this plant contains a white latex. This is dogbane, and dogbane has these really thin pods. So very cool. I don't see that a lot, so that's awesome. So this is a great example of conservation at work, and you're thinking, that's a dead tree. How is this conservation? This is a invasive, and they have removed it from the landscape. These guys reproduce like nobody else. I think it's called Callaway pear, something like that. The flowers smell like meat, so it's not something that I like having around. So, also really important in the landscape are the dead plants. Not only this is probably a goldenrod, and you can see the seeds are on, but you will get insects. Native bees will actually get into the stems and overwinter. So if you do have plants like this in your yard, leave them until sometime late in the spring. Give those insects a chance to get out so that you don't ruin a place that could house beneficial animals. Could be Russian olive. Not 100% sure. But it's still a cool plant. There's a lot of plants that have escaped cultivation, domestication, whatever you want to call it, and have become part of the landscape. But they don't necessarily belong here. So this is prairie that the Arboretum has gone in and got plants that are native to prairies and put them in. It looks great. I know that I'm seeing at least goldenrod, and I know there's other species out here. Looks like there might be a sumac coming up. You're not going to see a lot of trees in the prairie, mostly grasses and other non-woody plants. I hope that you enjoyed your day here at Gabis Arboretum here in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you get a chance, come visit. It's well worth it.